This is SSN.
Story Studio Network.
Welcome to the Fatigue Fixer podcast. Have you ever wondered why you and most of the women you know seem tired so much of the time? Well, this is the podcast where we explore why. I'm here to help you better understand how your body works, whether we're talking about heavy, painful periods, why you have to pee all the time, or what the heck is happening to your body through perimenopause. And I'm not afraid to shed light on conversations that I feel we need to be having out in the open. Like, why are so many women struggling with irritability and anger, drinking more alcohol, and injecting our faces with Botox and fillers in an attempt to stay young? I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Vadeboncoeur. I'm a naturopathic doctor, mom, fatigue fixer, and loud and outspoken woman who's fascinated by the state of modern women's health and well-being. I know that you, yes, you, are incredible, and I want you to have the energy you need to share your unique gifts with the world because we are in desperate need of more female leadership. So join me for conversations that will help you feel less alone, more informed about all the things that might be draining your energy, and inspired to fix your fatigue and wake up every morning feeling rested and excited for the day ahead. I can't wait to share today's episode with you, so let's get into it. The other day, I went to pick up my son at camp, and the second I got there, I could tell he was upset. He was sitting on a chair, crying, and visibly upset. So I walked over and asked, "What's wrong? What happened?" And he told me that he had forgotten one of his bags where they had gone fishing that had his boots and his rain jacket, and he was very afraid that he was going to get in trouble because he forgot the bag. I reassured him, people forget things all the time, and I told him when I was a kid, I used to forget things all the time. I cannot tell you how many times I had to break into my own house through the window because I had forgotten my keys. He quickly got over it and then told me about all the fish he had caught. And then literally the next day, I was driving to work and I had an aha moment of realizing, wait a minute, I think I forgot my power cord for my laptop. So I'm furiously scrambling through my bag to see if it's there, and sure enough, it's not. So then I started doing the math. Was my laptop plugged in last night? How much battery do I have left? Will I make it through the day? Will I have to drive home at lunch? All the while just being so annoyed at myself that I had forgotten something and made a mistake. Literally the day after, I consoled my son and told him it was okay. People forget things. But I realized very quickly in the car driving to work, trying to figure out, again, how I was going to make it through the day without my power cord, that this was just a sign of how tired I was mentally. And there's been other signs lately that I'm mentally tired. About a month ago, I parked my car with the keys in the cup holder. And later that exact same day, I parked my car again and just didn't pay for parking, just completely forgot that I was in a paid parking lot. I've also gone to the store and loaded up the cart full of groceries and then gotten to the cash and realized I don't have a wallet. Or I put things in the wrong place, or walk into a room and get there and wonder, why am I here? Why did I come in here? Now, I've been working on my relationship with fatigue for years, so I'm pretty good at quickly spotting when my body is trying to tell me something. And yesterday, my body was saying, brain overload, capacity reached. Please don't ask me to think hard about anything right now. And if you want to learn more about what it can look and feel like when your body speaks to you, go back and check out episode 2 of the pod, the one where you hear your body speak. Now, if you've also been forgetting your phone or your keys lately, stay tuned because you are dealing with mental fatigue. And that's what today's episode is all about. Because I know I'm not alone. Just yesterday alone, I think I had this conversation about mental fatigue 3 times. And one of the big reasons why so many women are mentally exhausted is that we are doing a lot of unpaid labor. Women do about 70% of the world's unpaid work. And a lot of that work is invisible because it's happening in women's heads. It's all the planning and thinking and organizing and anticipating and worrying that we do. It's all the stuff that we have taken responsibility for that the world happily relies on us to do so that our families and society can keep functioning. And that shit is exhausting. So maybe you've been feeling tired and you've gone to see your doctor and said, I'm exhausted. Can you run some tests to find out what's going on? And your blood work comes back and you're told everything is normal. And I know how frustrating that can be, but it might also be a sign that you've been looking for energy in the wrong places. Maybe you've been focused on trying to exercise more, get more sleep, or eat better, when what you really need is mental rest. So what are some of the other key signs that you are mentally tired and need mental rest? One is difficulty concentrating. I know this is something I struggle with. This is something a lot of us struggle with. Or maybe you feel like you have brain fog, where it's hard to think clearly, your head literally feels like heavy or congested. Maybe you're someone who ruminates or overthinks. You think about the same things over and over again. Maybe you're forgetful like I am, and you're forgetting your keys or your wallet or your power cord. Maybe you're indecisive, and when someone asks the dreaded question, what's for dinner, you don't know what to answer, right? So many of us are making so many decisions every single day that we run out of energy to make decisions. This is a real thing called decision fatigue. Or maybe your brain literally feels fried. I had a patient just yesterday who said that she needs to empty her head out. There was too much in there, and I think so many of us can relate to that. So how do we give our brains a break? If you're listening to this and you're like, Sarah, this is me. I am very mentally drained. I'm forgetful and I can't make decisions. What do I do? Here are some of the ways that you can start to practice mental rest and give your brain a break. Number one is to take regular breaks. I know a lot of us really struggle with this because we are obsessed with trying to be as productive as possible. And what we often don't realize is that when we're not taking breaks, we're actually being less productive because our brains can only function at a high capacity for so long. So I'm a huge fan of the Pomodoro technique. And if you're not familiar with this, what it involves is literally deciding what you're going to work on, setting a timer for 25 minutes, and for 25 minutes, you work on that one single task, and you remove all distractions. You're not also going to check email or check your phone. You're paying attention to one task for 25 minutes. Then you take a 5-minute break. Now, this is not a break where you're pretending to take a break and you're checking email or doing other work. No, you're getting up from your desk, moving, getting away, taking a proper break, and you come back and you do it again. You set your timer for 25 minutes, you work, you take a 5-minute break. And then after you've done this about 4 times, you take a longer break. We are not designed to sit at a desk and be productive for 8 hours. I know that is what most of us are required to do for our job, but that was made up. That's not how our bodies are designed. And so when we try to be productive and sit and stare at a screen for hours and hours, our brain gets very tired. So we need to practice taking breaks. I've shared this lately on social media that for the first 14 years of my career, I did not have breaks in my schedule, which is insane looking back. I always had a lunch break, so at least I was doing that. But otherwise, I would see 10, 15, 17 patients a day, back to back to back with no breaks. And then I wonder why I keep forgetting my keys in my wallet. That's weird. Why is that happening? It's happening because I'm working without any breaks, and I've been doing that for 14 years. So put breaks in your schedule, block them out, respect them, make them sacred, take them. It is amazing to me. Literally, since I put a 15-minute break in the morning, I take a 45-minute lunch break, and I take a 15-minute break in the afternoon. This has made my work days so much more enjoyable, and I'm so much less mentally drained at the end of the day. So take your breaks, and even especially actually, if you feel like I don't have time for breaks, you need them even more. So put them in. You will get your work done outside of your breaks. The other thing is to stop multitasking. First of all, multitasking doesn't actually exist. I know as women, we're almost like celebrated for being good multitaskers. What's actually happening when you're multitasking is that you are very rapidly switching from one task to the next and back. You are not doing two things at once. You're doing one thing and then switching to another and switching back. And that requires a ton of mental energy. The more you're switching back and forth between tasks, which most of us do all day, because maybe you're working on something, then an email comes in. You're like, ooh, I better check what that's about. Oh, I just remembered I have to answer Janet from accounting. Let me send her an email. Ooh, look what someone posted on Instagram. Oh, wait, what was I doing? We do that all day long, and it takes so much mental energy. So please stop trying to multitask. If you focus on one task at a time, it'll be much easier to get that task done, and then you can move on to the next one. Next up, you're not going to like this one, but this has been a game changer for me. Remove all the dings and pings and beeps from your devices. You don't need to know every time someone tweets. You don't need to know every time I post a reel. You don't need to know every single email that is flying into your inbox, right? Unless your job is literally to reply to emails the second they land in your inbox, you don't need to know they're there, because what that's doing when you're trying to do work and you're seeing every single ping and ding when you get an email, when your brain hears a ding, it's like, ooh, what's that? Oh, okay, it's an email. Is that an email I need to respond to? Yes or no? No, that one can wait. Okay, back to what I was doing. How many times a day is your brain being asked to analyze and do something very quickly because it's being pinged and dinged? Take the alerts off your computer, take the alerts off your phone, and just that alone gives your brain a huge break from from reacting every time it hears a sound. Next up is one of my favorite practices that I speak about quite a bit, which is yoga nidra. Yoga nidra is basically yogic sleep. And the goal of it is actually not to put you to sleep. The goal is to bring you as close to sleep as possible without falling asleep. It is one of my favorite forms of meditation and one of my favorite things to do when I am starting to feel mentally tired. It's like having a nap, but without the grogginess that you get from a nap. So I'll put in the show notes the Yoga Nidra meditation that I like to listen to. It's basically a 15-minute guided meditation. So if I start to hit the wall mid-afternoon, which I think a lot of us do, I will get away from my desk for 15 minutes. I literally go and I lie in bed. I put on an eye mask. I listen to my Yoga Nidra. If I'm scared that I'm going to fall asleep, I set an alarm. And I just listen for 15 minutes, and it's such a great physical and mental reset. So this is a great thing to do any time of day when you need a break, but mid-afternoon I find especially nice. The other thing that I'm working on, which is really hard, is putting myself on what I call a low information diet. And if you're like me and you're a high achiever and you love learning and you love listening to podcasts and reading books and learning all the latest, greatest things, remember that your brain has to process all of that new information that's coming in. And if you already have a job that's very mentally demanding, and most of us now, a lot of us have very mental jobs, right? There's a lot fewer of us doing manual labor, and there's a lot more of us doing mental labor. So if you're spending all your work hours doing hard mental work and then you drive home and you put on a podcast where you're listening to something new, and now you're cooking dinner and you're still listening to another podcast, and then you go for a walk and you put on an audiobook, like it's a never-ending stream of information that your brain has to digest and try to take in. And again, like my patient said yesterday, if your brain is already very full and now you're trying to jam more information in there, your brain gets overwhelmed and it gets tired. So I make it a practice to spend more time quieting my brain, where there is no podcast coming in, where I'm not listening to an audiobook, where I'm not learning something, and I'm just giving space and breaks in the day for my brain to have a break and to not have anything coming at it. So I want you to ask yourself, if you feel like you are mentally tired, what will help give my brain a break? Because again, our brains are processing an enormous amount of information on a daily basis. And that can be very tiring to try to take all of that information in, process it, think about it, learn about it, all those different things. There's also two other types of fatigue that often go hand in hand with mental fatigue. And the first one is emotional fatigue. So what does this look like in real life? Well, it looks like my 8-year-old, again, last night, sobbing, like losing his shit at the dinner table because I had the audacity to think that I was allowed to eat the last croissant. Going back to the what's for dinner question, last night was a breakfast dinner because we didn't have anything planned for dinner. And so I was like reheating these old frozen croissants we had. And I gave him 2 and there was 1 left. And I thought, well, maybe I can have the 3rd. But no, he got up from the table, so mad, crying, sobbing, went to his room and promptly fell asleep. Kids are really good at showing us what emotional exhaustion looks like, especially if they've had a big long day at school or a big day at camp. We have all seen this and we've probably all felt it. Maybe you're not crying over the last croissant, but maybe you're crying for no reason. And I put no reason in quotation marks, which I know you can't see, because I personally don't believe that there is such a thing as crying for no reason. I think we've been conditioned to think that there's only certain things that are worthy of crying over, when in fact, crying is actually a perfectly healthy emotional response to all kinds of different emotions. But maybe if you're emotionally drained, maybe you're crying a lot more than usual. Or maybe you're not a crier, maybe you're a yeller, right? Maybe you've gotten super irritable, you're losing your shit, you have little to no patience, and you feel bad because you yelled at your kids again, or you picked a fight with your partner. Or emotional fatigue often also shows up when we're PMSing, because our hormones make it harder for our brain to manage stress. And it's also a lot harder for us to pretend that we're feeling okay when we're PMSing, when we're not feeling okay. So all those pent up things that we were able to tolerate and manage all month long, when that veil drops in PMS, a lot of stuff starts to bubble up. And all those pent up feelings come bursting out in a giant mess of mood swings. Or maybe you're overwhelmed. I hear this word so often from the women in my office. I'm overwhelmed, right? I have nothing left to give. So if you're recognizing yourself in the signs of emotional fatigue, here's how you can start to give yourself some emotional rest. So the first thing that you probably know, but I'm going to remind you, is that nothing is more exhausting than pretending that you're okay when you're not. So first and foremost, we need to get comfortable feeling our feelings, not trying to fix them, not trying to numb them, not trying to jump straight into action mode, but literally just feeling what needs to be felt. Right? So if you're feeling angry, if your regular thing is to like put on a funny movie or go out for a run, there's nothing wrong with those, but those are often just ways to quickly move past the anger. What if you were to just sit there and feel angry and let yourself be angry? Because when we actually let ourselves feel how we feel, we'll usually notice that emotions actually pass through us pretty quickly. And there's actually been some research showing that most emotions, if you actually let yourself feel them, they will start to dissipate within 90 seconds. I think most of us can handle feeling angry for 90 seconds or sad for 90 seconds. But because a lot of us have never learned how to do this and we haven't been taught how to sit in these unpleasant emotions, we try to bypass them, and that doesn't work. They will come back and find us. First is you got to feel what you're feeling. Once you're feeling your feelings, the next step is to express them. So the next time someone asks you how you are, before you automatically say, I'm fine, check in. And if there's someone that actually cares about you and not just some random person, tell them how you actually feel. Or if there's no one around, write it down. Do some journaling if you want. But it's so important for us to actually just start outwardly expressing how we feel, because when we don't express it outwardly, we try to keep it inside and it causes a lot of dis-ease. It doesn't make us feel good. It's not good for our health. The other thing that is emotionally exhausting is people pleasing. And this is just another way where we pretend to be or do something that we are not in order to keep other people comfortable. So limiting people pleasing could be putting boundaries. And boundaries are not about telling other people what they can or cannot do. Boundaries are how you are going to respond if people do certain things. So boundaries are not about trying to control other people's behaviors. They're about deciding what you will and will not tolerate and just clearly articulating that to people in your life. I know it's not easy to set boundaries. I know it's not easy to hold and keep boundaries, but it's so essential. If you want to protect your emotional energy, you have to have boundaries. You need to get comfortable saying no, and you ideally want to live as authentically as you can. When we are parading around at work or with our kids' friends or whoever it is, when we are showing up pretending to be something that we're not, pretending to care about something we don't care about, pretending that we think something we don't really think, that requires an enormous amount of mental and emotional energy. And I think right now, again, because there seems to be a lot of difficulty for us engaging with people who think differently than we do, that we often are suppressing what we really think, how we really feel in order, again, to fit in, to not ruffle feathers, to please people. And that is tiring. That is very, very tiring. You all know I'm a huge fan of therapy. If that is something that's available and accessible, this is one of the things I do to keep my emotional energy levels up, is I have a therapist who I can tell everything and anything to, and he helps me work through a lot of this stuff. But it could be talking to a friend or journaling. So again, if you're feeling emotionally drained, emotionally tired, I want you to ask yourself, what will help give my heart a break, right? What's going to help make me feel less emotionally exhausted? And then last but not least is sensory fatigue. This is one that I have been noticing a lot in myself. And after I had literally asked my son to turn down the volume on the TV like a million times, it's like, why am I so bothered by the sound? Or why does the sound of some YouTube videos literally make me want to smash my TV? And that is because my senses are overwhelmed and they're exhausted. So here are some signs that you also might be dealing with sensory fatigue. Number one, you have children, okay? Children are loud. Their toys are loud. Their shows are loud. Their shows have, in my opinion, very loud and annoying sounds. And you might also be feeling literally touched out if you have young children, if you're breastfeeding. Kids, like my son is 8, and even this morning he was like, can I lie on you? And I love it, and it's lovely. But if you are already overwhelmed by your senses and you have children literally sitting on you, lying on you, hanging off of you, that can be very tiring. It's lovely, and it can be very tiring. Maybe you're noticing, like me, and this is where I really laugh at myself, that I'm becoming one of those people. But you start to be the kind of person who goes into a restaurant and is like, it's too loud in here. Or I've been at the movies lately and been like, why is it so loud, right? So if you're noticing that you're becoming one of those people where everything is too loud, or the lights are too bright, or there's too many smells and too many lights, welcome to sensory overwhelm. You're probably sensory tired, like I am. Maybe you literally have like blurry, tired eyes. Or one of the things I'll notice is I'll go to listen to a podcast and I'll like scroll, or even Netflix. Like I'll just spend 20 minutes looking at what I want to listen to, and I don't actually want to listen to anything. So if nothing seems interesting to me, that's when I know it's because my brain needs silence. It needs to not hear anything or watch something. It just needs to be quiet. Here's how you can start giving your senses a rest. Number one, literally just close your eyes and shut down your vision, which is just shutting down one of your senses. You could take a few deep breaths. I'm a huge proponent of unplugging, turning off your devices, having screen-free breaks in your day. I try to not look at my phone in the morning right away when I wake up. And I have at least 30 to 60 minutes in the evening when I also don't look at my phone. When I go on vacation, I'm usually really unplugged. So just take some breaks from your screens and your devices. I'm also a huge fan of earplugs, and in particular loop earplugs. I wear these for sleeping, but they also have some that you can wear during the day. So especially if you are overwhelmed by noises and you have loud children, I promise every mom is like, but I need to hear the children. You will still hear the children. You just won't hear them at 100% volume. So it just helps to like turn down the volume a little bit on your life. I'll put a link to those in the show notes. Those are definitely a go-to of mine. You can also unplug from things like noise and light and screen. So again, maybe it means less podcasts, less audiobooks, less music. I've been practicing driving in silence. I know that sounds kind of boring, but it actually, if you have sensory fatigue, your brain and your senses are actually really going to love it, because it's a sensory and a brain break. Your brain doesn't have to process anything. It's just going to allow it to kind of metabolize what's happened during the day and not have more stuff coming in. So maybe it's driving in silence. Maybe it's cooking dinner without listening to another podcast, or going for a walk without your music or your phone, and just literally looking at what you're walking around, looking at nature, breathing. And speaking of nature, nature is probably one of the best ways to give yourself sensory rest. Just literally being in nature, walking, breathing, looking at all the beautiful things is such a great way to, again, calm your brain, your heart, your senses. So I wanted to share these 3 particular types of fatigue today, because I know that so many of you, like me, are doing, quote, all the things and still feeling tired. And this is a big part of it. We're hyper-focused on the physical health, but we often don't realize that what's going to really move the needle is paying attention to our mental, emotional, and sensory energy. This is exactly what I teach inside of my women's circle, Effortless Energy. Because most of the women I know, and most of the women that I have the honor of working with, know what they need. Right? Whether it's more sleep or more alone time or more exercise, what most of us do not need is more information about what to do. Most of us have too much information, which is part of why our brains are so tired and we can't make a decision, because we have 28 options for every one thing that we're trying to do. What most of us need is we need a plan, we need a strategy, and then we need the support to do the things that we already know that we need or want to do. And that's why we meet as a group every month inside of Effortless Energy, to connect, to share, to set goals together, and to cheer each other on. So if you want to join me and this incredible group of women, you can go to fatiguefixer.ca/EE 2024. Because being on a health journey by yourself is way less fun. And I really believe being healthy should be fun. If it's not, just makes it a lot harder. So we do things in a group because it's way more fun. And you're also less likely to get the results you want when you're trying to go it alone. And I know where mental and emotional fatigue can lead you if you ignore them for too long, and that's burnout. And you'll also probably feel like something is wrong with you if you're not managing the untenable mental load that you've been asked to carry. And I know that's not where you want to end up. I love supporting women on their journey, and being a part of Effortless Energy gets you access to my ongoing support and cheerleading. So if that is something you want, please head on over to fatiguefixer.ca/EE 2024 to join Effortless Energy. And I'll put that in the show notes if you can't head there right now. So the next time you forget your keys or your laptop charger, or you lose your patience with your kids, please just remember that your body is speaking to you. It's lovingly trying to tell you, I'm mentally tired and emotionally drained. And now you have a better sense of what kind of rest you need, depending on what kind of tired you are. Now I'm off to give my brain the break it needs and that it's been asking me for, but I will see you right back here in 2 weeks. Bye, everybody. Thanks for spending your precious time with me today. If you enjoyed today's episode, it would mean so much to me if you would take a moment to leave us a rating and review. And share this episode with a friend who needs to hear it. If you're ready to get more insight into what's making you tired, find out which of the 5 most common types of fatigue you're dealing with by taking my fatigue fingerprint quiz at fatiguefixer.ca/quiz. Are you dealing with frazzled fatigue, where your body's exhausted but your brain won't shut up? Or maybe you're more of the drained fatigue type, where no matter how much sleep you get, you struggle to get up in the morning. Just take my fatigue fingerprint quiz and you'll have more insight into which labs to ask your doctor for and what habits and practices are best for fixing your type of fatigue. Find the quiz at fatiguefixer.ca/quiz. Because let's face it, accepting perpetual exhaustion as the norm, that's just not going to fly around here. Last but not least, I want to thank Jen Hudson and Mike Trutler over at Story Studio Network for bringing these conversations to life. I'll see you right back here in 2 weeks. Bye.